First of all, one of the biggest mistakes people make with ribs is by not removing the membrane on the back of the ribs. So make sure that's the first thing you do. All you have to do is just score the meat and use a bit of paper towel to grip it and pull it off. Okay, so we're going to make our initial rub. So into a bowl, I'm going to place in a quarter cup of apple juice, followed by 1/3 cup of mustard, yellow American mustard I'm using, and a tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce. And just give it a good mix until it's all well combined. Okay, so I've got our ribs here, and now remove some of the fat, but you want to keep some of it on there, because that's where half the flavour is. Okay, so we're going to start by basting one side with what we just made up. Okay, once that side's basted, we're going to add some seasoning. Now you can be as simple as salt and pepper, or a steak seasoning, but I'm kind of partial to Traeger's chicken and pork rub. So I recommend that you give that one a go, but if not, you don't have to. Just use your favourite type of spice. And once done, just simply turn it over, and we're going to do exactly the same thing on the other side. And this is where it's really important that you take that membrane off, just so it can all soak in on this side as well. Now for my smoke, I'm going to use a mixture of hickory and cherry, but it's completely up to you what flavour you choose. Okay, now we have our smoker going, we're going to place our ribs meat side up onto our grill. And this is where the 3-2-1 comes into it. For the first 3 hours, we're just going to smoke our ribs. So close the lids, don't touch it, don't open it, don't check it, just let it smoke away for 3 long hours. Okay, so it's been 3 hours, so let's take a look. Oh, that's some good smoked ribs. So the lovely smoke has penetrated the meat, so it's ready for the next step. So next I'm going to use some aluminium foil. Now you want to use the good quality premium one, which you'll find is like 2 to 3 times thicker than normal foil. If you use just normal kitchen foil, you'll need to double it or triple up the amount that you use. Because you want these to be sealed, you want to make sure that no liquid's going to come out of the foil. So we're just going to start by making the foil into like a boat type shape. So you just want to build up the sides for when we pour the liquid in, that way the liquid's not going to run out. So I've taken our first rib off the smoker, and we're just going to sprinkle on some brown sugar. And this will give it a nice, lovely, sweet glaze. And then on top of that, I'm going to place on some honey. Okay, so with our sides done up, of course, I'm going to add about a quarter cup of apple juice, about a quarter to half. And this will keep the ribs nice and moist. Okay, so we're just going to do up the foil now, but as we're doing it, we want to make sure it's sealed, but we don't want the top of the foil touching the ribs. So we want to create like a steam air pocket on the top that'll let the steam circulate throughout the meat. That way you get those lovely moist ribs without the dry spot on top. Plus it also gives a chance for that glaze to work its magic. Okay, so we're going to place our ribs back onto the grill, and you want this to be an indirect heat, so don't put it over any coals or gas. Make sure it's on the side where you don't have the direct heat touching the bottom. Now you want to try and keep the temperature at about 225 degrees Fahrenheit, which is also about 110 degrees Celsius. And we're going to keep it as close to that temperature as we can for the next 2 hours. Okay, so it's been 2 hours, so now it's time to move on to the final step. Now you just need to give the aluminium a minute to cool down, and it's safe to touch and it won't burn you. So we're just going to open her up. Just be careful, the steam's going to start coming out. Now as you can see, the meat has started to pull away from the outside of the bone. That means it's coming along perfectly. So we're just going to transfer this to a plate. And our last step, we're going to baste it with some sauce of our choice. But for this particular one, I'm using Baby Ray's. But give them all a go, experiment. So just put a layer on there, and we're just going to just cover it up with our sauce. Okay, once that's covered, turn it upside down, and we're just going to do exactly the same thing. Okay, so once done, we're going to put them back on the grill, again, indirect heat, and we're going to cook it for a further 1 hour at 225 degrees Fahrenheit or 110 degrees Celsius. Okay, so the final hour is up. Let's see how they look. Oh, yum. Oh, they are looking just perfect. So what we have to do now is take them off the grill. So we've smoked these ribs for 3 hours and slow cooked them for a further 3 hours. And look at how easily this meat just comes apart in your hand. It just comes straight off the bone. It is absolutely fantastic. But let's give one a try. Oh, that is super fantastic. It is literally melted in my mouth. It is so good. You can taste that delicious smoked flavour. It really, really is fantastic. So this is one of the older ways, but still one of the best ways to make slow cooked smoked ribs. Because as long as you follow every single step exactly, these ribs are going to come out tasting simply delish. Now we're going to start off with the obvious, and that is a fresh chicken. And what I've done is I've just rinsed it under cold water and patted it dry down with some paper towel. Then once it's nice and clean and dry, I'm going to drizzle on some olive oil. Then I'm going to give it a sprinkle of salt and some black pepper. And finally, I'm going to use some white meat rub. And this general all-purpose white meat rub, it really works well. It just adds a lovely finished flavour. Now the next ingredient is your favourite can of beer. Any beer will do, whatever you like the best. Now me personally, I'm not a huge beer drinker, so I'm just going to use an iconic Australian beer, which is VB. Now if you're good at balancing, you can put the chicken on the can as is and it'll be just fine. But honestly, spend the $10 at the local hardware store or barbecue store and just buy one of these holders. And then all we have to do is simply and carefully place your chicken over the can. Now I'm using this wood-fired barbecue simply because it gives a little bit of extra flavour and it really does work well. But for this particular recipe, it's not necessary. You can still do it in the oven at the same temperature. Now it doesn't matter how good a cook you are. Personally, I will always use the thermometer when cooking chicken. It's the safest possible way to do it. Put simply, all chickens are a different size, so there is no set time. We want to cook this chicken to a minimum of 74 degrees Celsius or 165 degrees Fahrenheit. It should take about 1.5 to 2 hours, depending on the size of the chicken. Okay, so our chicken has just come up the temp, so let's check it out. Now this chicken is cooked perfectly, and that beer flavour has oozed all the way through the chicken. Now as I pull out this thermometer, you can see how the juices are coming out clear. That's another indicator to say it's ready. So obviously if the juices are still coming up a little bit red, it means you've got to cook it a little bit longer. That's another indication if you're not using a thermometer. But of course, spend a couple of dollars on a thermometer because then you'll get a perfect chicken every time. And lastly, what I recommend is just let it rest for about say 20 minutes, even wrap it in some foil, and just give it a chance for the juices to work their way back into the meat and the muscle, just so you get a lovely juicy chicken. Then serve it with a side of rice, coleslaw, potato salad, pasta salad. It's really up to you, but either way, this beer can chicken's going to taste simply delish. Now we want to start this turkey recipe off by making a lovely stuffing, which really does add to the flavour of the turkey. So to start off with, I have a fry pan on a medium heat, so just drizzle on just a little bit of olive oil. Then to that I'm just going to add in one chopped up onion, and we're just going to cook this onion over the medium heat just for a couple of minutes to soften them up, which will also help release that lovely onion flavour. Now that we've softened up the onion, I'm going to add a couple of cloves of crushed garlic, and we're just going to cook that over this medium heat with the onions for a further minute, which will also help bring out that lovely garlic flavour. And after a minute, just simply take the pan off the heat, and we're going to put the onions and garlic aside while we get started on the rest. Now we've returned our fry pan back to the medium heat, so again we're just going to drizzle on some olive oil. And to that I'm going to add 3 cups of breadcrumbs, and just cook it over the medium heat with the olive oil for about say 5 minutes. We want to get to the stage where they're just starting to brown. Now you can use breadcrumbs from the shops, or you can make your own. It's very simple. These are the ones I've just made myself, and this is actually brown bread. I've just put it through a food processor until we get up to this nice crummy breadcrumb stage. Okay, as you can see, it is now browned up slightly. It's more of a golden brown, and that's exactly how you want it. So I've just turned off the heat, so now we're just going to add a few more ingredients. First one being our onion and garlic mixture. Then we're going to add 2 tablespoons of parsley, then 2 tablespoons of thyme, 2 tablespoons of sage, the zest of 1 lemon, 1 tablespoon of lemon juice, and season with some black pepper. And mix it through until it's all combined. And once it's combined, just let it sit by itself for say about 20 minutes just to give it a chance to cool down completely. And next we're going to use a turkey, fresh, frozen, it's up to you, sometimes it comes down to convenience. I'm just personally choosing the Steggles brand simply because they are also supporting the Give a Leg Up campaign. So I'm not being paid a single cent to do this, I'm just choosing to work with Steggles because they're also working with a worthwhile cause, which is helping Vinnies. Now I've taken our turkey out of the package, and what I've done is I've rinsed it underwater. I've also removed any giblets that were inside the turkey, which is basically like the long neck. And I've also patted the outside dry with paper towel, as well as drying the inside with paper towel as well. So all we have to do now is just stuff the inside of our turkey with our stuffing mix. And of course, make sure you don't leave your watch inside. And we're just going to use some butcher's string to tie up the legs, and this will just prevent the stuffing from falling out during the cooking process. Now I've just placed our turkey into a roasting pan, so we're just going to drizzle over olive oil. Let's get a nice covering of olive oil just on top. Let it run down the sides. Now you can use any flavour that you like, but just try and find a nice poultry rub that we can just sprinkle on top. But of course, any flavour will do. It just comes down to your liking, so you can always experiment. Next I'm going to place it onto the barbecue. Now you can do this on a barbecue or in the oven. There's not a lot of difference apart from the fact that honestly on a barbecue it always tastes so much better. So once on the barbecue or the oven, we're going to cook it for about 3 hours, but that's just a guide only. Just keep in mind the bigger the turkey, the longer it's going to take. And we want to aim for a temperature of say 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 180 degrees Celsius. And this is on indirect heat. So no matter if you're using a coal, wood or gas type barbecue, you want to make sure it's on indirect heat, so it's not directly over any flames. But of course if it's in the oven, then that's nothing you have to worry about. Now after 3 hours you want to use an internal probe, that's the best way to check if it's done. And you want to get it to about 170 degrees Fahrenheit or about 80 to 82 degrees Celsius. Now it's been about 3.5 to 4 hours because this is a rather large turkey. As I said, it does depend on the size of the turkey, but I've just taken it off the barbecue, brought it inside, and it smells absolutely delicious. And look at that colour, it is lovely and golden, a little dark where I put the seasoning, which means it's come out perfect and it smells fantastic. Now the secret to having a lovely moist turkey is make sure you let it rest for at least 20 minutes. That'll just give a chance for all the juices to work their way back through the meat. And whatever you do, don't cover it. It's just going to moisten the skin so you won't have that lovely outer crispy skin that you love from a cooked turkey. Now once you've let it rest for at least 20 minutes, it's ready to carve up and it's going to be the best turkey you've ever had. And of course this isn't just a Christmas recipe, you can make this type of turkey any day of the year. But for right now, please do me a massive favour, I'll leave all the information down below on how you can help out a worthwhile cause. From something as simple as hashtagging on your Instagram or Facebook, where every hashtag you post, a donation will be made on your behalf. And for everyone in Australia, you can go one step further by sending a text to the number listed below, so you can make a quick and easy $5 donation which will go to needy families this Christmas. So for something that takes just a few seconds to do, it really is a worthwhile cause and it'll put a smile on a kid this Christmas. So come time for their Christmas dinner, they're going to have some food that's going to taste simply delish. Now first of all, we want to soften some of the ingredients that we're going to place inside of our beer can burgers. So I have a fry pan on the stove on a medium heat, so just give it a quick grease. And these ingredients are up to you, so feel free to experiment, but I'm going to start with 1 chopped up onion, 1 chopped up bell pepper or capsicum, followed by a few chopped up mushrooms. Now we don't want to soften these too much, just say 2 to 3 minutes, just till they start to soften up because they will be baking when we put them on the grill. So we just want to soften them up just a little bit. It'll just make it all that much better. Okay, so as you can see, I've now softened up our ingredients. So we don't want to soften them up too much. So we're just going to take them straight off the heat and get started on assembling our beer can burgers. So next in a bowl, I have half a kilo of minced or ground beef. So first, I just want to give it a bit of a season, just with a couple tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce, and some salt, and pepper. And just get your hands in there, just give it a good mix until it's all nicely combined. So I have a decent sized meatball that I've just made up. So I'm just going to pat it down a little bit, and we're going to get our beer can and just put that right in the middle. And using our hands, we're just going to shape and form the meat around the beer can. Of course you don't have to use a beer can, but that's just what it's called. You want to use Pepsi or Coke, go for it. Okay, once I've formed our beer can burger shape, it's time to add some filling. So I have some tasty cheese here that I've just cut into a cube, so I'm going to place that just in the center. Then our softened mixture, I was going to place that on top and around. Then I'm going to give it an additional sprinkle with some cheese on top, any cheese will do. And lastly, I'm just going to wrap around a couple of slices of bacon. Now I've set our grill up to a medium heat, which is about 300 degrees Fahrenheit or about 150 degrees Celsius. So when using the grill, you want to make sure these are on indirect heat. Don't have them directly over any coals or burning wood. Now with our beer can burger on the grill, it's going to take about an hour at this temperature, but it can take a bit longer. What I recommend is you use a meat thermometer just to check when the meat is done. That way there's no room for error. So you're going to want it at about 170 degrees Fahrenheit, or anything above 77 degrees Celsius. Once it gets to that temperature, it's done. Now I've just taken our beer can burger off the grill, and doesn't that look absolutely delicious? It's cooked all the way through, and putting it on a bun is optional, but it is a burger of course, so it's best on a bun, but honestly it makes no difference. Now just cut it in half and look how the cheese in the middle has melted. It's going to be so delicious, so gooey, so cheesy, so bacony, and with all that put together, you know for certain it's going to taste simply delish. Now roasting your own garlic at home is ridiculously simple. And honestly, once you know how to do it, you're never going to buy it from the shops again, because let's be honest, homemade always tastes best. So we're going to start by cutting off, say about just under a quarter of the top of our garlics, just to expose all the cloves, and just remove the outer layer of the husk from the clove of garlic, just so we're exposing all the cloves. Now I have our garlics in a foil tray. Now you don't have to use a foil tray, you can just wrap them in foil, but I just find this a lot easier and neater. So just give each one a generous coating with some olive oil. And with some more foil, we're just going to cover it up and seal them in. Now you can do these in the oven, or you can do it on the barbecue. I find it fantastic to do it on the barbecue, especially when you're cooking other meats, or vegetables, or pretty much anything else that you're cooking. So obviously in the oven, you just place it in the oven, but on a barbecue, make sure it's on indirect heat. And we're going to place it in there for 45 minutes. And you want to keep it to 325 degrees Fahrenheit or 160 degrees Celsius. So leave them in there for 45 minutes, and you know they're ready when you squeeze the cloves and they feel nice and soft. Now I'm just taking our garlic off the barbecue, and I tell you what, these smell absolutely fantastic. Garlic is definitely one of my favorite ingredients to use. And they are so versatile because you can use them in so many dishes. Now they're very simple to take out, and I do recommend gloves because they are slightly moist at the moment. And because of the strong smell, it will be hard to get it out of your hands. So we're going to grab one off. And basically all you have to do is just squeeze them out of their cases, just like so. That's how simple it is. And just look how simple they come out. How simple and easy. And it is that simple to make roast garlic. And I can tell you right now, it doesn't matter what dish you use them in, when it comes to garlic, when it comes to roasted garlic, it's always going to taste simply delish. Okay, so to start this off, into a bowl, I'm going to place in about 2 litres or half a gallon of water, followed by half a kilo or a pound of salt. And we're going to top that off with 1 cup of brown sugar. And just whisk that until it's all nicely combined and dissolved within the water. Okay, so next I've got a plastic container, and here I have our pork belly. And as you can see, I've removed the outer rind, the outer skin. Now that's up to you, but I highly recommend that you get rid of it, because A, it prevents a lot of the rind from soaking in, and B, it's just kind of chewy anyway, so it's kind of pointless. So I'm going to place that right down there. And with our brine made up, we're just going to pour that on top. And that's pretty much all you have to do. So now we're going to place a airtight lid on. And I'm going to place this into the fridge for 24 hours to give a chance for that brine to soak into that pork belly. Okay, so it's been 24 hours. So we're just going to use the meat and just give the brine a bit of a mix just to make sure nothing has settled on the bottom. And we're just going to turn it upside down. That's simple. And put the lid back on and place it back in the fridge for a further 24 hours. Okay, so it's been a total of 48 hours. So I've just drained all the liquid out and just with some paper towel, just give it a good pat down on both sides. And this will just make it a lot easier for that smoke to penetrate our bacon. So now we're ready to smoke our bacon. Now the main reason we smoke our bacon is it just infuses it with some lovely flavours. It also helps prevent bacteria growth. Now it's up to you what flavour wood you want to use. I'm using a mixture of hickory and oak. But you can use one or the other. It's up to you. Best thing is you can experiment and have some delicious bacon every single time. So we're just going to place our slab onto our smoker, and I'm going to put it meat side down. And we're going to let that smoke away for 5 hours. Now of course, depending on the grill you're using, you don't want to use direct heat. Make sure it's on indirect heat, because you don't want to cook the pork belly. You want to infuse it with that lovely smoke flavour and turn it into some delicious bacon. Okay, so she's been smoking away for a good 5 hours now. So it's time to see what it's like. Oh, look at that. Now would you believe that it's just one big piece of juicy bacon, just waiting to be cut up and cooked into something crispy and delicious. So now that it's done, just simply take it off the smoker and you can place it into a sealed container in the fridge, and you can cut it up as thin as you like or as thick as you like, and just cook it like normal bacon over a fry pan. And the main advantage is you know exactly what's going on in your bacon, and you can cook it to exactly the way you like it, with as many flavours as you like. No, I don't need to say it, but when it comes to homemade bacon, it's going to taste simply delish. And I highly recommend that you experiment with different wood flavours, as the possibilities are endless. So thank you for watching this episode of Todd's Kitchen. As always, I'll leave a list of ingredients down below, as well as links to my Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and Home Handy Hints channel.